My talk is going to be about creativity, but I like to begin my conversations or my presentations with my personal story. So this is a story of my childhood. This is me and my twin brother. I'm the one on the left. And a few years after this photo was taken, we were growing up in Tehran, Iran, and a war broke out with the neighboring country of Iraq after the Iranian Revolution. And so my brother and I grew up in one of the hardest neighborhoods you could imagine. Our neighborhood was literally a bombing target, and so every single evening we'd go into the basement and hold our ears for 3 or 4 hours straight, hoping that the jets flying overhead wouldn't bomb our house. It was pretty much the worst environment you could bring up a child. But one day my life changed when my parents brought home a magical gift. They gave my brother and I a Commodore 64 computer, but this wasn't the magical gift because it had no games, no apps, it had no software. But they gave us a book, an introduction to basic programming, and they said, you know, if you can learn how to write this code stuff, if you can dream it, you can build it. And so living in Iran as a child of a nuclear physicist and a computer scientist, I got really good at computer programming on my own. So by the time I moved to the United States as an immigrant, my brother and I both were so good at this stuff that we started working at tech companies as summer interns as early as when we were 15 years old. And now I've had a fantastic career in tech, and really my story has been a story of opportunity and the American dream. And I talk about this because the American dream is really changing a lot these days. If you think of the top job types in America, opportunity is on this path towards disappearing in many ways. There's about 3 million Americans working behind cash registers, 3 million truck drivers, 3 million people working in manufacturing, 3 million Americans working in food prep, and all of these job types are on their way out. The top tech companies are making stores that don't even have cash registers. The top trucking companies are making trucks that drive themselves. The most popular job in manufacturing is for robotics experts to automate manufacturing, and there's already robots that know how to make salads, pizzas, and hamburgers. And when you think about this, technology's impact on our workforce is something we all hear about. Today's workforce, experts say that over just in the next 3 decades, half of all of today's jobs are going to be replaced in some form by automation. Now, this isn't all bad news. You know, if you consider a radiologist spends their time looking at x-rays trying to detect disease. Last year, the National Institute of Health gave out data on about 100,000 x-rays saying these ones are the ones that had this and that disease. And Stanford computer scientists, in just 6 weeks, made an algorithm that can detect pneumonia better than any radiologist. And now when you hear that, on the one hand, you should think if you have a child or a friend who's learning radiology, now's a good time to tell them to change careers. But on the other hand, it also means we'll all be able to detect diseases better and cheaper globally. And this really is the story about how automation and technology improves productivity. We've seen this story throughout the centuries. Since the invention of the loom, or the invention of the automobile, or the invention of modern agricultural machinery, we've always had new technology that changes our lives and also automates work. You know, whether it's the loom or the car, these stories have always come about how jobs will be lost. And in fact, modern farming machinery alone has changed America in a way that half of all of US jobs 100 years ago were on the farm, and now those jobs have shrunk tremendously down to about 2 or 3% of jobs because of the new technology. So really the question is, as we go into another wave of technological change, the trillion-dollar question is, what will the jobs of tomorrow be like? Now, you don't really need a crystal ball to answer this question. All you need to do is to just look a few years into the past. This is a study, the results of a study by the Brookings Institute comparing the change in jobs in about a 15, 16-year period. At the top bracket is the highly digital jobs, not just for computer programmers, but for data analysts and folks like that. The next bracket is for moderately digital jobs. This includes jobs like teachers who are increasingly using technology in their classroom. And then the shrinking and lowest paying bracket is the completely non-digital jobs. If you envision these same this same chart and just think 15 years ahead or 16 years ahead, a student who starts kindergarten today, graduating college in 16, 17 years, what will this picture look like? All jobs will be digital, and the largest sector and highest paying sector, more than half of all jobs will be highly digital. We're at the point where advanced computing skills are increasingly important, not only in tech industries, not only in STEM fields, but in every industry. But this isn't just about computing skills. Another thing that's increasingly important in every industry and every line of work is creativity. Creativity is important in every industry and in every type of work. Now, when I talk about opportunity and about computer science, people think I'm talking about tech companies in Silicon Valley. It turns out that the vast majority of jobs in software are outside of Silicon Valley, and they're not even at tech companies. They're at retailers or telecom companies or in entertainment or government. The other issue in terms of technology and opportunity is the diversity of who gets a chance at these opportunities. If you look at people working in tech and computing fields, they're predominantly white and Asian men. And the lack of diversity in our tech workforce is mirrored in the university system, and it's also, at least historically, been mirrored in the K through 12 computer science world. Now, I haven't spoken about education or K through 12 until this slide, but this obviously is where I personally focus and where Code.org set out to solve this problem, both to address the issue of opportunity and diversity. But before we talk about that, opportunity isn't the only reason, jobs aren't the only reason we send students to school. We don't just send kids to school so that they can get jobs, and we shouldn't just teach computer science for people to get jobs in computer science. I often ask, what's the purpose of education? Why are we even teaching kids stuff? How can we improve it? And we heard from lots of people over this conference about different ways we can improve how we teach. Yesterday, Sal Khan gave this great talk about how personalized learning and technology can change how we teach. What I'd like to talk about is questioning what we teach or why we teach it. And this is a question that we rarely have amidst all the debates about charter schools against not charter schools, or longer school days, or smaller classroom sizes, or more testing or less testing, personalized learning, more technology, less technology. Nobody's asking, what are we actually teaching? What should our students learn after 13 years of K through 12? I have a daughter, she's 10 years old, and right now she's spending at least 1 hour a day practicing this math problem. Not exactly this one, but something along these lines. And she's basically practicing how to do it over and over and over. She learned multiplication a while back, but she didn't learn how to do it, and right now she's getting really good at doing it repetitively. And after she does it, do you know how she checks her homework? She says, Alexa, what's 34,279 times 238? And then Alexa tells her her answer, and then she checks whether she got it right or wrong. And so after she does that, she's like, Daddy, why am I learning to do this if Alexa can do it? And the answer is jobs. The reason why we teach that is because 100 years ago, there were millions and millions of jobs where you needed to be really good at doing the math. In fact, if you got super good at it, the actual job title you could get, you could grow up and one day be a computer. This kind of math skills were critical in every job, from engineering to finance to insurance, you name it. Now, we continue to teach math, but we aren't questioning why are we teaching the same types of math skills, the parts that have just become completely automated. And this is why we should ask ourselves, what is the purpose of education? What are the things that our graduates should walk away with? What are the most important things they should learn? When I went to school, every student would learn about the insides of the digestive system, about how electricity lights a light bulb, or about the basics of geometry. And I bet these are concepts every one of you learned and still remembered. If I asked you how do the light bulbs work in a room, you wouldn't wonder, oh, I don't know, I should ask somebody technical how that magic thing is doing what it does. But when you ask somebody how does your phone work, how does an algorithm work, how does the internet work, most of us don't know this at all. And for today's youth, those are just as important to learn in terms of understanding foundationally the world around them, regardless of what job they want to go into. In a world of accelerating technological change, one of the most important things we can teach students is the ability to learn and adapt to new technology. We all are feeling how technology is changing much faster than we can keep up, and for the youth, it's especially, this is just their world. Now, I'm not talking about learning how to use technology. Lots of schools, and in fact globally, schools have tech ed programs that teach kids how to use technology, and these tech ed programs are increasingly out of date. They include learning objectives like teaching a student how to browse the internet or how to search the web. And students are like, really? This is what we're learning in class? Like, I learned that on my mom's phone, when I was 7 years old. What we really need to be teaching students is how to create technology, how to create things, whether it's animations, whether it's websites, whether it's apps, not just because that gives them a foundational understanding of how it works, not only because in a world where this is a superpower that is only controlled by 1% and we should democratize it for all students, but really to make things more creative in the classroom. If you watch TED Talks, I'm a big fan of TED Talks. The most popular TED Talk of all time is a talk by Sir Ken Robinson questioning, do schools kill creativity? Now, it's a very, provocative headline to use as a question of a TED Talk, but really the question is, how can we improve creativity in schools? How can we bring creativity more and more into the classroom? Most people think the way to do that is using music or art and dance, but the other way to bring creativity into the school and to bring it into the classroom is using computer science. And to show you a little bit of that, I'm going to do a quick demo of some live coding, but instead of doing it myself, I have an assistant who's going to be joining me. All right, Izzy, how old are you?
I'm 11.
11 years old, and what grade are you in?
I'm going into 6th.
6th grade? What school are you at?
I'm at Thurman White Academy.
All right, and I hear that you're a great computer coder, is that right?
I guess.
And where are you learning to code?
I'm learning to code in my humanities class.
In your humanities class? Who's your teacher?
Miss Alcantar.
So Miss Alcantar, Izzy's humanities teacher, is teaching her computer science, which is so wonderful, not only to teach her how to create technology, but also blending it with humanities so you get a sense, today's children need to learn not only the superpower of how to use technology, but how to use it for good and to get a sense of the ethics as well. So do you like your computer science class?
I don't just like it, I love it.
You love it. How come?
I love it because kids get to express their imagination and their creativity.
So is it important for schools to teach computer science, do you think? Or why?
In my opinion, I think it is because nowadays, everything that people do in the world is mostly with technology. And I think people would like to learn what they do and how they do it.
So are you ready to show this audience? By the way, have you ever stood in front of an audience like this?
Never.
Are you a little freaked out?
Maybe a little, just a little.
Have you ever coded before an audience?
Yes, for a school project.
For a school project, okay. It was a smaller project than this?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go over here to my computer and we can show this audience how you do it coding. All right, so we're gonna put her screen up here. What you see here is code.org. On the left-hand side is basically the space where there's this little artist holding a big pencil and it's gonna make some drawings. In the middle is the toolbox of commands that Izzy's gonna use. And on the right-hand side is where she's gonna write her code. One thing you'll notice is that she's not actually gonna type anything, because when you start learning to code in school now, it's all drag and drop. So Izzy, can you make just a single line, get that artist to draw a line of 100 pixels? All right, that was Izzy's first line of code. So the artist moves forward 100 pixels. So can you do that and have the artist move and then turn and move and turn and just draw a square? Just moving and turning. All right, so most people when they draw a square do a move command and a turn and then a move and a turn. She just did a repeat command. So repeating 4 times in a row, moving and turning. Good job, Izzy. So can you take the code from that square and put in that little area called my function? So now Izzy has a new block called my function. And that function now, anytime she uses that block, it's going to draw a square. So can you drag that block out and then have it draw like 100 squares in a row? Or make it 1,000 squares. Kids love to tell computers to do things with large numbers. Once you can tell it to do something once, you can tell it to do it 10 times or 100 times or 1,000 times. And it's really satisfying because the computer does not get bored or lazy or tired. It just keeps going. But these squares are all the same. Can you stop it for a second and now make each square a different color so we can see the colors change? All right, so now we have a square that's changing colors. It's still not that exciting. So one last thing, can you add a turn so that after each square is drawn, it does like a 2 or 3 or tiny degrees of turn? So the great thing that you see from what Izzy just said, thank you so much, Izzy. Is that awesome? So Izzy in just a, oh, don't stop it. So what you just saw is just with very few lines of code, Izzy just made a beautiful drawing. This is something that she can take home and show her mom, and in fact, her mom who's here didn't have any idea that Izzy's coding like this in school. But what's also great about this is at the same time as learning how to make this drawing, Izzy's also learning about the angles, which you also learn in math class. And even though she's just starting 6th grade, she's already started learning about functions, which is something you don't even learn in math until 7th or 8th grade. And this shows how computer science can bring the creativity of teaching, how to make beautiful stuff combined with the sort of harder skills of math at the same time. Izzy, thank you so much. She is so wonderful, by the way, and we just picked her relatively randomly, and I just met her, and it's so incredible to know that kids at that age are learning coding and computer science as part of the school system. And so this is basically showing how we can teach creativity as part of school using computer science. So the reason computer science is important to teach isn't just for jobs, which is what most people think too. It's also because of changing the diversity of our workforce. It's also important because it's foundational, just like learning about the digestive system or about electricity. And it's also because the creativity engages kids and they like doing it. Now, my hat says code on it, but this isn't just about coding. And in fact, coding is the wrong word for what we talk about. This is about computer science, which is an academic field of its own, which includes computer programming, computational thinking, data science, networking, cybersecurity, robotics, machine learning, and like I mentioned earlier, ethics. All of these things together are an entire academic field that is not being taught in most of our schools because it's new and we haven't added it to the curriculum. Our vision at code.org is that every student in every school should have the opportunity to learn computer science, just like they learn math, just like they learn history, just like they learn English. But most schools don't teach computer science. So the question we ask is, how can we change the global education system? There's 4 steps to changing the education system. The first step of global change starts by inspiring teachers and students. And for us, this has been about a campaign we started 6 years ago called the Hour of Code, which is by far the best thing I've ever done in my life. The Hour of Code started out as an idea when code.org was just 4 or 5 people. It's now reached about 700 million hours of code being done. 1 out of 6 students in the entire planet has used code.org to do the Hour of Code. And I suspect many people in this room have done the Hour of Code in their classrooms or at their schools. But the Hour of Code is just the first step to inspire teachers and students and parents to recognize that we can do this, that your classroom can do this, that the 10-year-old girl in your classroom, just like Izzy, can start learning how to code. That's step 1. Step 2 is policy, whether at the national level, at the state level, or even at the school level, to require computer science being offered. So anybody here who's an administrator managing a charter network, I encourage you to think about how to get all the schools in your network to teach computer science, just like KIPP just announced that they're doing it last year. Step 3 is to look at free courses that make computer science accessible and easy to teach, so your school or teachers don't need to become tech experts and IT experts. And code.org offers courses that start as early as 1st grade with drag and drop programming, and they're super fun because they feel like a game. They include Angry Birds and Star Wars and Minecraft. And then you can graduate up to more advanced courses in high school for learning how to make apps and learning how to use Arduino boards and use physical robotics. But courses alone aren't enough because who's going to teach these courses? So we also need programs to basically provide professional development so today's existing school teachers can learn to teach computer science. If you're a school teacher today, no matter what subject you're teaching, if you're interested in it, you can learn to teach computer science, and Code.org offers workshops near you to help prepare you to do that. But people ask me, can today's public school teachers learn to teach computer science? And there's this sort of intimidation we have as adults that this is like this rocket science calculus thing that like it's going to be hard for us to do. And the answer is a resounding yes. We've been now doing this for many years at Code.org, and the results of our work, we've prepared almost 100,000 school teachers, taking America's existing teachers, math teachers, English teachers, history teachers, art teachers. They're now teaching computer science. Actually, the number is no longer 30%, 40% of all the students in this country now have an account on Code.org and are learning computer science in school. There's three things we've learned from this work. The first is, once you teach it in school, you see a 5-fold increase in students learning computer science, taking and passing the AP exam, and a 10x increase for minorities. The second, and this is the best part, I think, is that the students using Code.org see a direct correlation to an increase in their test scores in reading, math, and science. We're not even teaching reading, math, and science, but as you saw Izzy perform, she's starting to learn angles or functions in computer science as well, and her test scores can go up while learning this as well. And then the third part, which is near and dear to my heart, is that the students learning computer science in school, by the end of the class, they rank it among their favorite classes. 70% want to study it after graduation, and they like it more than school. In fact, surveys in the US now show that students rank computer science as their favorite subject behind only the arts. Number 1 is music, number 2 is art, number 3 is dance, number 4 is computer science. And the reason is because of the creativity. It's not because you're learning some weird language, it's because you can create whatever you want to make. By elementary school, you're learning how to make beautiful art like we saw Izzy show. By middle school, you can start making games, not just playing games, but making games. And by high school, you can start making apps. And these are things you learn to make in school in a class that is giving you the skills of the future, but also giving you your own paintbrush to build whatever you want to dream. And the students love doing this. In the words of one student, a 7th grader in Idaho said, "I loved it, it was fun to do, I just want to do that over and over because I really enjoyed what I could do with it, the interactivity and how it felt to control. I wish we could do it every day." That is not what students say about school in general. I have kids, they don't say, "Dad, I wish I could go to school every day." But this is how students feel about computer science and coding because of the interactivity and the creativity. In the words of a KIPP teacher, and KIPP schools just rolled out computer science throughout all their high schools in partnership with Code.org using our curriculum, and we trained a teacher in every school. And one of the teachers just wrote in saying, "The curriculum is extremely user-friendly. It can be taught by anyone, regardless of experience or skill level. I have nothing but good things to say about how they set me up for success." And at Code.org, we do a lot of work to make sure the teacher is prepared and ready to teach this class, because most teachers don't know computer science themselves. They go in intimidated, they're not sure, they're going to be facing a bunch of kids who maybe know it better than they do, and we give them the training and the support to be able to do that. And one of the best things about this is, not only are the teachers successful, we've shown that teachers, regardless of what they studied in college, can get the same outcomes among students. And in fact, if you ask what is the number one thing that determines a teacher's success teaching computer science when they go through our training, it's not whether they had a background in computer science, it's not whether they're young or techie, it's how many years of experience they've had in the classroom. And so if you're a teacher with experience, you can be a great computer science teacher. I have a last student testimonial to say. We've had a lot of excitement at Code.org getting unusual students to learn to code, from getting President Obama to do the Hour of Code at the White House, or getting celebrities and so on. A few months ago, we had Pope Francis become the first pope in history to write one line of code. This was a unique event. We had 3 young girls, one from China, one from Latin America, and an African-American girl come together to build an app about the importance of using technology for good. And the Pope himself wrote a line of code and said, every student globally should learn how to harness technology for the power of good. We're quite far from getting every student to learn computer science, but there's now 40 million students on Code.org. It's far broader than the student just in the United States. And of these students, almost half of them are young girls like Izzy. Almost half of them are students of color, and almost half of them are too poor to afford their own lunch, and they're learning computer science in schools. These numbers are so different than the numbers you see of who learns technology and works in technology, and they show the power of what's possible when education decides to solve a problem. The tech industry has tried for decades to basically hire more people, and all they've been hiring is the same type of people. When education, when schools, when teachers decide they want to teach this to students in a diverse way and with equity at the forefront, we get numbers like this. The results we also see on the AP exam in computer science show that the students are learning this. The AP exam in computer science is the fastest growing exam in the history of the College Board. On the left, you see young girls taking that AP exam, and on the right, you see the underrepresented minorities, the students of color. The numbers are growing through the roof. But the problem you don't see is that 80% of schools in the country don't even offer AP computer science. So if you're in one of those schools, we need to get you to also teach computer science. Now, at a time when education is going through a whole lot of controversy, the movement to grow computer science in schools is the most uncontroversial movement in education. I like to say that that's the teachers doing an hour of code, but that's a rock concert. But the reality is, if you took all the teachers who've begun teaching computer science on code.org in just the last 5 years, it'd be over 1,000 times the people you see in that image. And this is important because this is really a movement at a time when education is going through a bunch of controversy and a bunch of fights about how we teach. Our entire country is at a time of record division. The world is going through a bunch of division. This is something that everybody can unite over. The idea of giving our students the ability to learn computer science and a pathway forward is uniting. This is an idea that started with individual teachers like Juan Lozano in Seattle, who began teaching it in their own school, just bringing a program to their school on their own, and then on their own getting their entire school district to do this. And at this point, hundreds of school districts in America have done this. Not just school districts, or not just CMOs like KIPP, but New York City public schools, Chicago public schools, Los Angeles public schools, Clark County, Miami, Broward, all of the largest school districts in the country have decided that computer science is something that every student should learn. And in fact, this is something that charter schools are falling behind on. At the same time, states are passing policies encouraging schools to teach computer science, even funding it, in some cases even requiring it. 49 out of 50 states have now set policies to bring computer science closer to being part of the academic core. In just 5 years, Maine is feeling very lonely as the only state that's not colored on that map. And globally, 33 countries in just 6 years have begun announcing national plans to bring computer science into part of the curriculum. This is one of the fastest spreading movements in education because it is so unifying, because there's no controversy around it. But still, most schools don't teach computer science. And what's terrible about this picture is that it's upside down in terms of what you want out of opportunity. The schools that are most likely to offer computer science are also in the wealthiest neighborhoods. In the lowest income neighborhoods in this country, 70% of schools don't even offer computer science at all. And this is why I want to bring things back to my own personal story. When I came to this country, my family was poor. We didn't have very much to get us forward. I was in a new country. I had a weird accent. I didn't know the culture. I didn't know how to make friends. But the one thing I had was a really good taste in fashion. No, I didn't know how to dress at all. I went to my first day of school looking completely out of place. But the one thing I did have was exceptionally good skills in terms of coding and computer science. And that opened doors for me beyond my wildest dreams. And I'm wearing a shirt saying we are all dreamers. I'm not saying that. I'm not wearing that to make a political statement, but because literally we are all dreamers. Everybody has hopes and dreams. And if you think about a young kid growing up in a neighborhood in one of the bottom quartile neighborhoods of this country where 70% of schools don't teach computer science, and think that student is going to be graduating from high school in the year 2030. If they start kindergarten now, it'll be 2031 or 2032. What is the world of 2032 going to look like if there's one class we could teach them in their school to prepare this young kid for the future, especially if they're from a low-income school and aren't going to make it into college or not graduate from college? How do we prepare them for the future? The one class that's most important for that kid is computer science. So please help me bring computer science to every school. If you want to work with code.org, you can visit code.org, and there's a very friendly page, code.org/yourschool, to help any school teach computer science. If you don't work with us, there's many, many other options as well. Our success has been thanks to educators like yourselves. In the last 6 years, 1 million teachers have joined code.org, and it's thanks to them, thanks to you, that we're managing to change the face of computer science, to make it something that's equitable for every student, regardless of skin color, regardless of gender, regardless of the neighborhood they grew up in. And thank you so much for making that possible. I also want to say the work of code.org is only possible through an entire network of organizations that share the same vision. And these organizations are all over the country, working at the same mission locally, and they're run by amazing people, and every one of them is part of making this happen. Thank you so much, especially to the teachers here who are already computer science teachers, and especially to those of you who have made whether code.org or the Hour of Code or computer science such a success. Thank you very much.